going on? I'm Dometi Pongo, and you're watching another edition of ImageMakers powered by MG Media and TBT News. And our guest is a personal favorite of mine, not only because of his music, not only because of the fact that he's been on 3 of my favorite albums of maybe the last 15 years or so. His voice can be heard on Section 80, my favorite Kendrick Lamar album, to be honest, my favorite Kanye West album, College Dropout, and my second favorite Ye album, Late Registration, none other than Chi-Town's own GLC, man. What's going on, brother?
What's up, brother?
Man, thank you for coming through. It's been a long time coming, and while you have done quite a lot of music, I mean, you've written with or for Bruce Springsteen, you worked with the estate of Marvin Gaye, I mean, the list goes on and on, but I'm more concerned right now, at least for this segment, about what you're doing in the community of Chicago. A lot of people don't know how much work you really put in the streets, and that's one of the reasons why we want to talk on ImageMakers, because I came out not too long ago, 63rd and Yale, and there was an unveiling of a sign that you designed, which was actually the first documented landmark Welcome to Inglewood sign designed by GLC. Now, most people know you by GLC, but on the back of it says Leonard GLC Harris.
True story.
You're a true government name. How did that come about? And again, thank you for coming to the ImageMakers, man. I really appreciate it, bro.
I must say it's an honor, a privilege, and a pleasure to be here, brother.
No doubt, man.
Indeed. The way that came about was I was commissioned by the Neighborhood Housing Services and Teamwork Inglewood and Good in Inglewood and the Baldwin Group. A lady by the name of Rashana Baldwin who works with Neighborhood Housing Services. She hit me up and she was like, yo, they having this contest or whatever because we decided that we need a sign in Inglewood to welcome people to the community. So I was just, you know, obviously chilling. I whipped up a few designs real casually and smooth. I submitted them and they made it to all the churches and the community groups. And man, overwhelmingly, I won.
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
Now, what was did you get a chance to see some of the other designs that were being considered?
Yeah.
Yeah. What was the difference between your design and kind of the inspiration behind it and the other ones that you saw being considered?
Well, see, mine possessed the ism. You know yeah, mine had a vision. You know, it was a sense of power and urgency. I put in the hospital that I was born in, St. Bernard, because that's the beginning, that's where it all began. Then I put in Inglewood High School, which was a school that my mom used to run the kitchen in all throughout the 80s. Then I put in Kennedy King College because, man, it's a center of learning, it's a learning institution. Not only did I put that in because of that, but also because it is now on the same street, the same area, which was the second largest shopping district in the whole Chicagoland area, 63rd and Halsted.
Yeah.
So I just looked at the fact that this community had all this great historic relevance, and I just wanted to bring it to the forefront. Now, originally when I did it, I had pyramids in the sign, because I was like, man, it's a black community, this is African, I'm gonna give them the bond, bring it together.
Right.
But then they was like, you know, you might have to take the pyramids out, this and that. So what I did was I got smart. I did the shape of all the buildings in the shape of a pyramid, and we still Africa.
That's a big deal. Okay, I didn't even think about that. Now I'm seeing it in my mind. And you did it the color of Simeon colors, didn't you?
Yeah, because I went there.
You went to Simeon.
Yeah.
Grew up in Inglewood, went to Simeon.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I grew up on 87th and May in Auburn Gresham, but I also grew up in Inglewood on 72nd and Emerald, because that's where my brother, my late great brother, Barbara Quasey, that's where he lived. So I would spend a lot of my childhood over there, and it used to get so real over there at times that his kids and myself, when I was spending the night, sometimes we had to sleep on the floor because bullets was going through the windows and the walls. So it was serious.
Yeah.
So my thing was, what could I do to try to beautify this area that the media outside of your outlet and a few other outlets show as like the prominence in the community. All they showed was the negativity. So I was like, man, I want to do something to try to give the community a sense of pride. Yeah. Because when you don't have any pride in your community, you don't care like what it looked like how it's upkept or anything.
Yeah.
But once the pride is there, man, you might look at it as a part of you.
But some people minimize the importance of symbols. But we're talking off air, and you're talking about what social learning theory really is and how it affects the way the youth come up. Talk about the importance of symbolism, and not in this trivial way, but in a way that really shows people that they can take pride in the places they grew up in. Man.
Well, the thing with symbolism, I would say, is us as people of African culture, or Black people in America, we are simply diaspora Africans. We are Africans that were born outside of the continent because our ancestors was brought over here against their will, or some of us came before Columbus, like the great Ivan Van Sertima stated, you know what I'm saying? Like, we was here. And it's proof, because it's the Olmec heads all throughout Veracruz. My thing with symbolism is, if you can see a symbol that you could attach to greatness, somewhere down the line, like if you see the Ankh and you know that that's the symbol of eternal life, the womb of a woman at the top, the phallus of a man at the bottom, and the new life that comes from it. Man, that's life. That's something that you can say that, yo, my ancestors recognize this as eternal life. I am a part of that. So if you can see things that your ancestors or the people that came before you, your elders, they built, and it was a symbol of greatness, and you have a direct association with that, you may begin to look at yourself as great.
And I can tell that you mean that in all sincerity too, because when we're at the sign, first of all, I knew that because I've seen you in different spaces, and oftentimes before you perform, you often consecrate the space with a libation.
Absolutely.
And you did the same thing at 63rd and Yale with my brother David Peterson, who's on the past episode of ImageMakers. Talk about what the libation ceremony is, what it meant, and why you felt to do that at that time, at the inaugural ceremony, you know, for the sign that you put together.
Definitely. The way that I got in tune with the libation ceremony was through my brother, Baba Kwesi Ronald Harris. This is a guy who used to throw Kwanzaa celebrations in his living room on 72nd and Emerald, at that same house where the bullets might have been coming through the window. We was in there harnessing all this African energy, all this great energy of our great ancestors. So what the libation is, it's pretty much a homage. You're paying homage to the ancestors. You start off by, you get a living vessel, such as a plant, and you get water, because the water going into the plant is the symbol of life giving life. It's life. So with that being said, you start off with calling out the names of God, whatever name you know him as. Some of us were introduced to God as Jehovah or Jesus. Some may have been introduced to God as Allah. Some may have been introduced to God as Ataballah or Amin-Ra or, Haru or things of that nature. So with that being said, you don't alienate anybody by just saying, yo, it's just this one deity and this is what it's gonna be. You let people call on the Creator, the Most High, the Absolute, whatever name they know him as, and you pay homage to the Absolute, the Creator. And then after that, you say and you pour libation, and you pour the water into the vessel. After that, you pay homage to the great ancestors that came before us, like the warrior queen Nzinga, who fought off the Portuguese when they was trying to G Angola. Or you shout out the Colombo out of Angola, who came over to Brazil, and they fought off the Portuguese that was trying to keep them in slavery, and they was like, we ain't honoring this. Yes. They went off into the hills and started their own towns, and they fought against that. You call on the spirits of Mansa Musa, who was the richest man to ever walk the face of the earth. He took a pilgrimage from Western Africa all the way to Mecca, but along the way, he didn't make enemies, he made allies. So if you was with me and I'm Mansa Musa, and we see this beautiful lady that's part of this different tribe, we not finna be like, hey, we finna be at war with them and G, they ain't land. Right. I'm gonna be like, hey, Dometi, have a baby with her. You're gonna be looking like, all right, yeah, she bad, I have a baby with her, but no, you're gonna stay here with her. You're gonna have a family with her. Because once we come back from this pilgrimage, we would no longer could even think about being enemies, because now we are family. We call them brothers like that. And then we say and we pour libation.
Let me talk about Mansa Musa's generosity too. He would go into these places, not only built those connections, but he would put so much wealth in those places. Inflation went rampant in some countries for 10 years before they could recover, because all of this gold and resources through his pilgrimage they left through. So when you call on that, that's power, especially to a depressed community like some parts of Inglewood.
Man, we gotta call on it, because see, Mansa Musa was the symbol of Black power goes far beyond just doing this.
Yeah, yeah.
Without the capital, doing this is like, you know,
Right.
you gotta have the capital.
There's nothing in the fist.
You gotta have something in the fist. Yeah. And that's the thing. Us as African people, African American people, we spend $1 trillion a year. But we spend 1% of that with our own. And then we say we're poor. That does not symbolize being poor. That symbolizes poor spending habits. So with that being said, I call on Mansa Musa because Mansa Musa was getting so much money that he empowered everybody around him.
Yeah.
Call on them.
Yeah.
The ancestors can never leave us. All we gotta do is say their name.
Yeah.
So after that, we say, we poor, libation. So then after that, we call on some of the more recent ancestors, those like Omowale, the child who has returned home, who a lot of people think that he went from Malcolm Little to Detroit Red to Malcolm X to El-Haj Malik Shabazz, and they think that's where it ended. But when that brother got to Nigeria, after he left Mecca, they named him Omowale, the child who has returned home. I call on him. I call on Malcolm, a man who made the transition from a street dude to one of the greatest orators and leaders of all time, to lead people to the light, you know? Yeah. But in order for him to lead you to the light, he had to come from that same darkness in which you come from.
You followed that path to some degree even in your lifetime. What does GLC stand for?
Well, GLC, due to the fact that I grew up on 87th and May, and I was looking for something to belong to at an early age that could show me how to be a man in the current environment in which I was living in, I looked up to the GDs because that was the neighborhood that I lived in. And I seen a lot of the heavies that was in that organization doing a lot of really cool things for the hood.
Now, what does GLC stand for, man?
Well, GLC once stood for the Gangster Legendary Crisis. It was pretty much a summary of my life story. I lost my father when I was 8 months due to a heart attack. It was his third heart attack, and he had it while he was driving and crashed, you know. Then I lost my mom when I was 12, but in the middle of that, I lost uncles and other relatives. By the time I was 18, we had buried like about 16 of my friends in the community that I lived in. Then I ended up losing my house in a fire. It was a lot of things that people would look at and be like, wow, that's a crisis. Right. Because a crisis is a critical situation which entails you to be on your P's and Q's. You got to be on it during the crisis. Yeah. So that's kind of like what my whole life was. And I wanted to take the negative connotation of a crisis and show that, hey, I'm a crisis survivor. Because I left out when I was 14, I was diagnosed with diabetes.
You almost died.
I died and came back. I was pronounced legally dead.
Really?
I coded. I was out of here, but I was resuscitated. I just don't give all the glory to the machines and the doctors. I give it to the Most High. So I've been resurrected, and ain't nobody gonna tell me different because I went on the other side and I'm here right now, sitting here with you today.
What did you see? Were you unconscious at the time that you died? What did you see? What happened? Break it down from beginning to end, man.
Yeah, diabetes at 14. So what I learned from holistic health practices is that the pancreas is an organ that it reacts a certain way to depression or to sorrow or sadness. I lost my mom, and then 2.5 years later, I was in the hospital with a pancreas that didn't work. I was depressed every day, as well as malnutrition. My mom, she cooked every day, and I thought I was eating good, and she thought I was eating good, but my diet mainly consisted of starch and corpse. You know, like you think you eat good because you ate a steak with some macaroni and cheese and some rice.
And it's a home-cooked meal. You would think that that was healthy for you.
Yeah, my mama could throw down. But the thing was, all the stuff that I was eating, the majority of it, it all turned into acid in my body. And an acidic environment is the perfect environment for illness or diseases or viruses to flourish. Wow. So I was depressed, and then I was dealing with, malnutrition, and hence diabetes was there.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So during that experience, when I flatlined, I just remember having an out-of-body experience. I saw my two siblings, 2 sisters, 2 brothers, so 4 siblings standing at the foot of the bed, looking at me laying there, and they was crying. I'm in a room in the cut looking like, how is they looking at me? And I'm like, right there, but I'm right here too. Then I look over to the side and I saw my mom standing in the same room. And it's the same hospital that she made transition in. So, man, I'm a believer in the ancestors. I'm a believer in the Most High. And I'm a believer in, man, resurrection because I experienced it. So, yeah, that was a crisis too. But I wasn't gonna let the crisis get the best of me. So I took the word crisis and I decided that I was gonna redefine it. Because words only have power based upon who dictates the power. Mm-hmm. Like the most powerful thing that a man can say to another man is, let me tell you a story. Because he who tells the story controls the narrative. He controls the fate of all the characters involved. So I was like, yeah, crisis is this, crisis is that. I'm gonna redefine it and I'm gonna show kids that you can go through all this negativity and you can still come out on top. Mm-hmm. So that was back then. But since I've grown and developed, I really don't want to be referred to as a gangster no more because I see the world a lot different. So now I've evolved to simply gotta love Chicago. Gotta love it. Gotta show love. You know what I'm saying? Gotta love it.
We talked about growth and development, and before that, we're talking about you becoming a member of an organization that, you know, how did you, first of all, why this is so fascinating to me is because, as we'll get into, your brother Baba Kwesi, holding Kwanzaa ceremonies right there on 72nd, right in the same home, we saw shots flying. But even having that instilled in you at an early age didn't keep you out of the streets.
Well, the thing was, as a child, you know, a lot of times when you're disciplined and you're told what not to do, we usually do the opposite.
Exactly.
Only because the risk factor, it's the thrill, you know, like, man, I don't think I'm gonna get caught, you know what I'm saying? But it's just the adrenaline going. And when you get caught, and then your brother pull out that red paddle because he was a capper, and he was like, with me with it, you know what I'm saying? That right there kind of detoured me, like, okay, I probably need to be a bit more civilized. So I didn't stop being in the streets, I just got a lot slicker about it.
Right,
and the thing is, I appreciated the culture, but at a young age, I really didn't see the effect that all this history on Africa, what did it have to do with me in this present state that I was in? When I'm going outside and I'm seeing dead bodies and I'm holding one of my guys up until the ambulance come and I'm calling on the ancestors, but my people were still getting shot and all this crazy stuff was going on.
Right.
I didn't understand until I began to walk in the path of the ancestors that the change would come, because we always ask for change, but I found that the change that I wanted to see had to begin with me. So I further embraced the teachings of my brother, and here I am today, being an agent of change and a man who shows love, prosperity, you know?
Well, we keep referencing your brother, but we haven't even called on him properly. He's talking about Ronald Kwesi Harris, who, man, so I can't even remember when I first met him, because he's one of those people that you meet and you feel like you met him before. You know, he's also Kwesi. I pronounce mine Kwesi, but we both Sunday born.
Yes, sir.
And you know, when I told him I was from Ghana, he started speaking Tree to me. His tree's probably better than mine. You know what I mean? So, and we're having a conversation, and initially he cuffed me and just told me how much he believed in me. I was early on at WVON, and we was doing events at Chicago State University. This is even before the financial crisis going on at Chicago State University, just before it. And he was just so proud, like you said, that I had the power to tell our stories and to tell them in truth. So every time I went somewhere, he would talk about the Ma'at with me. He would talk about, we would just have these deep conversations about what that meant. Then I found out that that's something that represented his life. He did that with Timbo, the African American Male Resource Center up at Chicago State University. Talk about who Kwesi was and what he means to you and the city of Chicago.
Oh man, my brother, he was truly a beacon of light, man. There were a lot of
and I know he's your brother. He was so humble. He know everybody. He know Lupe. He know you, either related to you.
Yeah.
I mean, but yeah, beacon of light.
Yeah, he was simply a beacon of light, man. He was one of the most humble and modest guys that I've ever met in my life. And he would always say that he is simply the sum total of everything that came before him. He instilled in me, and he walked in the same path. He said that we are only here because we stand on the shoulders of the elders and the ancestors that came before us. And he walked with that. And he was like, yo, man, when it was time to vote, he'd be like, vote. Why vote, man? We don't have no control. Man, your ancestors died for that. Vote. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. He went to war against the tobacco industry, against Philip Morris. if you notice, you don't see cigarettes being advertised in the black community on billboards and stuff no more.
So how did he fight
He
against
teamed
that?
up with Lisa Madigan and a few other revolutionaries that were under the same act of Uhuru Sasa, Freedom Now for the people. And with that being said, man, they went to the government, to the legislation, and they had a lawsuit against this tobacco industry. And man, they came out victorious.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, no, it's rich history.
He was an agent of change because he understood that when a person is at war with you, they could drop bombs and have guns and do all that. That's one way. But a better way for them to get you is silent. They can get it through the food and through the things that you consume, like cigarettes. They got tar and rat poison on it and this and that.
So start to address that.
Yeah, and alcohol, which kills your liver and your kidneys. You know, they get you like that, a slow death, as opposed to walking up in the streets executing. So he fought against that, you know what I'm saying? And with Timbo at Chicago State, that was teaching and educating men of black origin. And what he did in his time there, which was only 6 years, he took the African-American male graduation percentage from 5% to 25%. This is a historic feat that he did up there. And also he had the highest African-American male student retention rate in the whole state of Illinois.
That's amazing, man. That's amazing. That's amazing too, because I was a teacher at a program at SIUE, Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. It was called Goal-Oriented African American Males Excel. Okay. And I had gone the GAME program, and I had gone through that program, and our numbers weren't looking like that. Okay. But we had it was amazing. We had about 20 boys, and they had the females of African descent modeling excellence was the FAME program. Yeah. And I didn't know that there were other universities doing that, because technically Chicago State is like our HBCU, but it's really a PWI. And his program allowed for there to be an HBCU and a black enclave within the structure of that institution. So it's truly a testament to who he was. How did he finally transition? What was it?
Well, he made transition out of the physical form into the spiritual realm last year. It was kind of crazy though, because a few years back he was diagnosed with prostate cancer. But the crazy part about it is he had went to the doctor a year prior and there was nothing wrong.
Really?
And then this cancer came just out of nowhere. And when he was diagnosed, he was at 70% in his body. And they gave him 3 months to live. But my brother wasn't going. He was a spiritual man. Yes. He was a powerful man. And he was a man of discernment, knowledge, wisdom, understanding, integrity. And the man who gave me the game to save my life at an early age, I was able to give him game at an older age to prolong his, as far as the holistics approach. And then Mama J, and then other people of the community, they all came together because we weren't trying to lose the leader.
You said the person that put you on African spirituality, you ended up being able to in turn put him onto ways that he could elongate his life. They gave him 3 months to live when he was diagnosed with cancer, prostate cancer. Yeah. How did you help him live far beyond that 3 months?
Put him on that alkaline diet. We went 80% alkaline.
What is alkaline? People talk about alkaline water, alkaline diet. It's just been like a cool buzzword for me. I thought batteries. Like I'm gonna top a battery, throw it in my water, and we good. Like what do they? What do they even mean?
Well, I'll tell you, an alkaline organism is an organism that has a pH balance of a 7.0 or higher.
Okay.
So when you come out of your mother's womb, you like a 7.3, 7.3. You're an alkaline creature by nature.
Okay.
So with you being an alkaline creature by nature, it only makes sense if you just look at logic. In order for you to sustain and maintain life, you need alkaline food.
Right,
you need to eat alkaline things to help this alkaline environment stay alkaline.
Right. And alkaline is just it's a chemical. It's like iron or something like that.
Alkaline is actually the pH level. It's the level of alkalinity. See, foods are either two things. They're either acidic or alkaline, and the scale goes from 1 to 10. Anything that's a 6.9 and below is acidic. Anything that's a 7.0 and higher is alkaline. That's just how it goes. That's the way that God made organisms. You're either an alkaline creature or an acidic creature.
So we find out, so what do we usually find ourselves when we get into life? And I'm not paying attention to my alkaline diet. Do we find ourselves at a 10 or at a 5 more acidic, or it just depends on the person in the diet?
Well, it all depends on your diet.
Okay.
Like if you are eating all acidic food, it's a good chance that you may have an issue. Something may come from that. Because an acidic environment, that's the perfect environment for viruses, diseases, and any type of illness to live in, because it's like food for them. They feed off the acid. So if you're eating things that turn into acid on a regular basis, it's a good chance that you're going to be ill.
Okay.
So take me, for example. As a kid, I ate a lot of meat, which all turns into acid. I ate a lot of dairy, which all turns into acid. I ate a lot of starch, which all turns into acid. You know, I ate fruits and vegetables, but not as much as I should have. The acidic food, like candy, that was calling me. I was addicted to it. I just didn't understand pH and alkalinity or acidity at the time because I wasn't taught it anywhere.
Right.
My mom didn't know. School wasn't teaching it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't until I got older and had to deal with now being a diabetic where I was able to receive the information and begin to make the change. But now we live in the information age, so anything you want to know is in the palm of your hand.
Right. We got no excuses no more.
No excuse.
So what? So how do we start an alkaline diet, and how did you? And what diet did you put Kwesi on?
Well, I had my brother eating a lot of alkaline fruits and vegetables. I had him eating a lot of kale, organic, non-GMO. I had him eating squash, which is also alkaline, okra, which is alkaline, mushrooms, extremely alkaline, coconuts, alkaline. I got rid of all the vegetable oil and shortening and stuff that he was using, and we switched it over to oils like grapeseed oil, which is high in alkalinity, avocado oil, which is high in alkalinity, olive oil, as well as coconut oil, hemp seed oil, and on top of all of those, black seed oil, straight alkaline. That's like a fix for you. It's gonna get you straighter than straight, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
Also, I made, I just prepared a lot of the meals for him, because the thing, it would be like, he'll see me on Instagram with like a kale salad, or like if you follow my Instagram, you see I post a lot of food.
At GLC the Ism.
At GLC the Ism, man. Most of the food that I post is alkaline food. See, a lot of people think, man, you just gotta drink alkaline water, but you can eat alkaline food.
Right, right.
Like cucumbers are alkaline. You know, you could chop up some cucumbers, put them in your distilled water, and you got alkaline water.
And I just do it because it tastes good. I got a whole, I infuse my water with and lemon alkalizes the water as well.
And lime as well.
Lime too.
Simple as that.
So you actually work in the food space too. Tell us about one of your business ventures where you're helping people eat healthy, man.
Well, due to the fact that as a kid I loved cheesecake, but the cheesecake ended up killing me because my body couldn't take it, you know what I'm saying? I was like, man, I sure wish I didn't have to give up that cheesecake. You know, I was in the mirror looking out like, man, I sure want some cheesecake. And then eventually I came up with a recipe to make a vegan cheesecake.
Oh, wow.
And I now have a company called ImageMakers. It's a vegan dessert company. And later on this week, I meet with Whole Foods for my third meeting, and it looks like I'm about to be on the shelves in Whole Foods as well as a few other local retailers. Congratulations.
Actually, by the time this drops, you will be in Whole Foods potentially. I mean, that's after the third meeting.
Power to the people.
You've been having some powerful meetings. You had a meeting with Dame Dash?
Oh, yeah.
I've been lurking your Twitter, man. I mean, your Instagram, man. I've been in it, man. You had a meeting with Dame. What was that like, and what y'all talk about? You got to give us all that.
Well, with me being diabetic, I'm also on the cutting edge of diabetes healthcare reform.
Okay.
For all my life, well, from 14 up until now, I would always have to take shots of insulin. Now, from meeting with Dame, I met with this company called Mankind and Afrezza. They have an insulin company where you no longer have to take shots. When you need to take insulin before a meal, man, you just pull out your inhaler and inhale it.
Is this already on the market?
Yeah, I'll show it to you, bro.
It's on the market already?
It's on the market already. I got it with me. I'm trying to see. Sorry, y'all.
And you're already using it?
I use it every day.
And so you're going to put this on the market as well. So you guys are making this a business partnership.
Making it a business partnership, and more so than just the business partnership, we making it as something that's going to help save lives of everybody. This is the pump right here.
Wow, wow. Hold that up for me.
So what you do is, like, this is like your insulin, right? You have this, you just put this in here, just like this. You close it and you do this right before you eat, and you got your insulin.
And you don't have to feel that prick?
Nah.
Or any...
Well, you still need to check your blood sugar.
Okay, okay.
The prick is not giving yourself insulin. That's
it's to check to get your blood prick to monitor the blood. Okay.
Yeah, but now companies like Fitbit, as well as a few other companies, soon they'll have devices on the market where it will just tell your cell phone what your blood sugar is from a patch that you wear. Yeah, it's companies that do it right now. Yeah. So the whole diabetes thing, man, with us dying in our 40s and 50s, like Phife Dawg just died.
Phife Dawg just died,
you know,
man.
The thing is, that's all gonna come to an end because, see, us as black people in America, man, we don't want to be pulling out junkie needles. It's even, like a psychological
it's a psychological thing. Yeah, even Lil Boosie a diabetic too.
Yeah,
yeah.
But when you think of a needle, you might think of an addict.
Yeah,
even though you're not putting it in your vein, you're just putting it in like fat tissues or whatever.
It just don't feel cool.
It just don't feel cool. And then after a while, you might get scar tissue, you know, from constantly taking a shot. This right here, bro, I could sit down at the table finna eat, be like, and eat. And
how do we get a hold of that, and how can we support you in that? If we got diabetics in our families, how do we do it?
Well, there's a doctor. She's located on 93rd and Paxton. Her name is Dr. Julie Taylor. Because see, Dame and I, we met with some of the top diabetes doctors in the whole city of Chicago, along with the owners of this company. And Dame was like, gee, you got to come to this meeting. Woo-woo. They were shooting this TV show called Dash Diabetes Network. And he was like, you really got to come see this. Because he had called me and told me about it. But after you've been taking shots your whole life, man, you ain't believing that. You like, come on.
Right.
Then when he did it in my face.
So bro, Dame a diabetic too?
Dame's a diabetic as well.
Wow.
Yeah, bro.
Wow.
So the thing is, when he did it in my face and then he showed me his blood sugar, I just couldn't believe it. And I've been hooked ever since.
That's amazing.
Yeah, because this is insulin, but it's like freeze dried. So when you inhale it, it goes straight to your lung tissues.
Why this is hitting me so heavy is because I think about just, even as people, it's difficult in this media space, or when you have an unconventional path to find other streams of income that still help people, right? Yeah. From the vegan cakes to this. We haven't even gotten into your music yet. This is the third, on the third break. We haven't even gotten into your music. And so when I see that, it just shows me that there's power, because somebody like Dame got Desco Poppington. He's in a whiskey. Still in the music, still in the art, etc. But then you have something else that is going to elongate the lives of our people. So it speaks volumes to ways we diversify our portfolios. How has your relationship with Dame evolved over the years? Because I imagine you saw, I don't know how close you were to it, the breakup of Rockefeller and all that, man. You had eyes on that.
I had a deal on the table when they broke up. At the time? Yeah, Dame is one of my best friends. He is a mentor. He is a strong supporter, and he's a visionary, man. Like, he always just calls with ideas, and more so than that, he calls and asks me, what's my A1C?
What's that?
That's your overall diabetes number, and it needs to be like at a 7. So if it's anything higher than that, Dame gonna be like, man, what you doing? You need to this, you need to do that. You know what I'm saying? Like, he on you, not just, hey man, send me some music, or hey man, let's help me do this film.
Right.
He like, yo, how is your health? How are you doing?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that right there, that means the world to me, because it's a lot of people know I'm diabetic. And I'm not saying anybody owes me to be like, yo, are you okay? Right. But just when people do it, you appreciate it.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because like with diabetes, when you see commercials, you got people on there talking about, oh, if you're a diabetes sufferer and you in this, man, I don't suffer from diabetes.
Right.
I feel good because I take care of myself.
Exactly.
If anything, diabetes just made me take care of myself more.
Right.
I eat a lot better.
Right.
Before I got into the light, I was eating a whole lot of stuff that wasn't the best thing for me.
We're just talking about how fortunate you were to have a friend like Dame Dash who calls you and asks you how you're doing and about your health. You have a friend who you tried to do the same for, Kanye West. You're on College Dropout, you're on Late Registration. That's when I first became familiar with you, actually, was Spaceship.
Oh, gratitude.
One of my favorite records.
Yeah.
First of all, before we even go into that, how did that record come about? That was your opportunity to work with Marvin Gaye Estate. You know, tell us about the process of College Dropout, man, and how you and Ye even became close friends and ended up making music together, man.
All right, well, Ye and I, we met in the 90s. We were 15. And we met through this dude named Bird Dre, or Birdman. We call him Birdman because he kind of look like a bird. But he got him, and he got glasses and a little beak nose. But he our man. and he came around the crib with this haircut. And you know how like they say Moses parted the Red Sea? Moses parted this man's head because his part was like this thick in his head, and he had like a little step over here, and it was like this over here. And everybody was laughing at his hair.
It was like a failed Gumby.
It was really bad, really bad. So everybody laughing at his haircut, like, man, who cut your hair? He like, man, Kanye. He like, Kanye, what is that? What's a Kanye? He was like, man, that's my man. I'm telling you, man, he might mess my hair up, but he make beats. I was like, he make beats. And back then I thought I was a rapper. I'm in high school, Simeon, rapping at the lunchroom table, freestyle competitions. All I needed was a producer. So my buddy introduced me to Ye. I go to his crib. He got like all these African books and African artifacts all throughout the house. I'm like, wow, this reminds me of my brother. Then I met his mother, and I was like, oh, okay, I see where it came from. You know, he had a lot of music, and he had an extensive collection of girl magazines with the girls in it looking real sexy. And we was young, and you know, this was something that we was really embracing. Like, wow, it's girls. Man, he got more girl magazines than me, you know? So we kind of had a bond. We was G'd up, we liked girls, we both was into basketball, we both was into music, and we formed a bond. Shortly after that, we formed a rap group, the Go-Getters. We ended up in the Source magazine, flew out to New York a couple
just the two of
times.
y'all?
It was he, myself, and a few other guys as well. My guy, Really Doe.
Shout out Really Doe.
Yeah, it was Con Man Productions. It was a whole big thing. It was Really Doe. It was my man Timmy G, Aerostar, Mickey Halstead, Rhyme Fest. It was a lot of us. Tifa, Shauna, Twine Gabs, a lot of us was just at this house, like just working on music. Cap One, it was so many people. So
Chicago legends.
Yeah, we'll just be at Kanye Mama house working on music. So we formed a group. We ended up being on the radio in Chicago. We got to fly out to New York, and everything was on and popping, but we didn't get the deal. I came back to Chicago, regrouped. I kept working in the mall at the Lark. I kept side hustling like everybody in Chicago was doing, you know, and trying to make a better way. Then eventually, Ye moved out to New York, started working with Jay and a few other top name artists, and then he eventually finessed him a record deal. Somebody tried to put their hands on him, and I knocked him out. You know, I hit him with the force of God, you know, and...
Where was this at? Wait, you can't breeze past that one.
Well, it was because Kanye did a record with this guy, and then he gave the record that he did with this guy to Jay-Z. And Kanye didn't holler at the guy like,
is the guy relevant?
Not today.
Okay.
I wouldn't say so, but back then he kind of was. He had like a little following.
Okay.
But then me, if I had been that guy, I probably would have been like, look, this dude in there with Jay-Z, I'm gonna stay in tune with him to see if we could work something out.
Right.
Because he growing and I need to grow too.
Exactly.
But you know how it is, man, in the streets and people giving you bad advice. And he tried to do something to somebody, and then he ended up getting what he asked for. You know, so that was one instance. It was several instances where, you know, people may have tried to do something to him or this and that, like, but we weren't having that. You know what I'm saying? Because,
so that just made y'all bond even closer.
Yeah, we bonded closer
yeah.
because he seen that, man, the love was there. It wasn't just a matter of, yo, I'm gonna try to protect him because he finna be famous, but this was my friend.
Right.
And if you call me and you have fear in your tone, I'm not gonna act like you called me laughing and joking.
Yeah.
I'm gonna act like you had fear in your tone when you see me.
Yeah.
And that's gonna yield some results.
Yeah.
Somebody might get knocked out. Somebody might get, you know, because Malcolm say, love your brother, treat him as a brother. But the moment he try to harm you or anything you love, then you gotta take him off the earth.
Yeah, I remember that one.
That's what Malcolm said. And fortunate enough, it didn't go that far, but it had become known that he had kind of like a force behind him. You know what I'm saying? So he began to take off. I eventually got out of Chicago, went out to New York, and I told Kanye, I was like, yo, man, I need a song that's gonna get me on the radio in Chicago. You know, I'm trying to elevate my lady rate. You know what I'm saying? The girls was choosing me already, but I was like, man, I need to like turn up. You know what I'm saying? So we was going through samples, came up on a Marvin Gaye Distant Lover. Kanye looped the beat, made the beat, did the drums, and like 15 minutes later, I had went into another room and elevated my mind a little bit, the way that rappers do. And then I went back in there and we had the first verse with Spaceship.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and then Kanye was like, man, this dope. This is going on my album. And I was like, all right, cool. So it was on this album and the rest was history.
That's dope as ever, man. So y'all got that record in, and then after that, y'all ended up doing Drive Slow. You're doing that. Of course, y'all built it throughout that time. We're gonna fast forward to even more recently. It was late last year. I mean, we see Kanye wilding out in the media, but at the time, it's true.
It's
you know,
true.
I can't.
I see it.
Yeah, you know, respectfully, but we got to be honest. You know, we see Kanye wilding out, and at this time, though, this was when he was on stage doing rants. When he was, I think he had been on it. He might have still been touring, doing some records off the throne, or no, it was the St. Pablo tour.
It was the St. Pablo tour.
It was the St. Pablo tour.
Yeah.
What happened? Tell the story. You tell it better than I can.
Well, he came in town for the St. Pablo tour. We got up, we talked, and he talked about a couple business ventures and opportunities that he had and things that he wanted to do. And he was like, yo, we gonna link up and we gonna make this happen. I was like, okay, sounds good, you know, it's cool. A month later, man, they had him in a crazy house. You know, talking about Kanye's in a mental institution. He gone crazy and this and that. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, I'm getting all these phone calls and text messages and DMs, people joking and this and that, like, man, what's wrong with your guy? Your man gone crazy. Is he using? What's going on? You know? I'm like, damn, I was in a real tough situation when I saw this. So I reached out to a friend of mine who was out there, because at this time you couldn't reach him direct. So I reached out to a friend of mine who was out there, and man, my friend was like, gee, I think we lost him. He not the same. One thing about Kanye, not to discredit his greatness and all that he's done in music, because he's an amazing artist. But one thing that he and I would often clash over was the fact of him seeking validation and who he seeked validation from. Because from the time when we was 15, I always felt he was the greatest on the producer side. This was my favorite producer. And as he got older and began to get more successful, he always only really cared for validation from Caucasian people. Now, I got Caucasian friends that's my aces, and I love them to death, just like I love my brothers. These are really great people. But I never lived my life based around if they didn't like something, then I wasn't the man. I already felt like I was the man. I was African, I was proud, I was strong, I was courageous, you know. Sometimes I even felt immortal after dying and coming back and surviving a lot of stuff that I survived on 87th Street. Yeah. So with that being said, we would often clash. After his mom passed, it seems as if people that didn't have his best interests at heart kind of like slid their way in, you know what I'm saying? So when you got somebody that's constantly telling you, bro, you don't be on that, that's lame, or you shouldn't do that because you look like a goofy, or dude, like it's a bigger picture than what you can see and this and that. You got somebody doing that on a regular basis, him and his core group, which was really his friends. Now you got some new people that's around where everything he say and do is the cool thing to do.
That's the move,
I went to Paris and I was like, Kanye, you need to stop screaming on reporters, cameramen, and walking into pose, because you look foolish doing that. And all people want to say is, man, there go Kanye making a fool out of himself again. One of his ball holders that was over there, I say ball holders because they like Caddyshack, you know, they just walk around carrying the balls, you know what I'm saying? So, or they need to be kicking it with Benny the Bull, because Benny the Bull is at all the Bulls games and all the ball boys is there. So he had ball boys with him,
right,
you know, the Caddyshacks, you know? So they in there like, oh no, this is strategic, man. Everything we got is planned out. Kanye knows what he's doing and this and that. But all while they saying this, I'm looking at it and I'm seeing something totally different. This don't look strategic. Right. This looks like a brother that's on the verge of a breakdown.
And they're looking at it like all press is good press.
Bro, I knew that he was on the verge of a breakdown when I went to Paris in 2014. And then last year, he had a breakdown. I tried to prevent it from the jump. But due to the fact that I tried to prevent it, my brother, he worked in mental health. I understand people. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? I understand people. So with that being said, I tried to prevent it, and due to the fact of me standing on that principle, I was alienated. See, a lot of people, they be like, man, why did Kanye stop messing with GLC, or Kanye left GLC? But don't nobody know the real story. I chose to move from LA on my own. Kanye didn't kick me out of LA. I moved from LA to Atlanta. But the whole time when I was living in LA, New York, Atlanta, and wherever else I was living, I always had residence in Chicago. And that's what kept me grounded. Yeah. I would always still be on 87 or 79th or on the low end or in the hundreds or out west. Right. I never lost my pulse on the culture or on the people. Yeah. Because my brother, he would always say, yeah, man, you got Grammys, oh, that's real cool, and I love them songs. But that don't mean nothing if you ain't doing nothing to help benefit the community. And that's the foundation that I had. And that was once the foundation Kanye had, because his mother was the first black chair of the English department at Chicago State. Yeah. But somewhere down the line, he got lost in the sauce.
You talk, all of this is going on behind the scenes, and you talk about that for the first time publicly on your Instagram page. We're going to go specifically to that post, but then also you talk about he lost his mother. We need to go back to what the relevancy of libations are. Find out what happens next after the jump. You're watching ImageMakers series. My guest is GLC. We'll be right back. You're tuned into the ImageMakers series powered by TBT News and MG Media. My name is Dometi Pongo, and our guest is GLC. Grammy Award-winning GLC. Let me address you correctly, man.
Two-time Grammy.
Two-time Grammy. Let me get it together. Well, you know, we're talking about one of your frequent collaborators, another Chicagoan, and you witnessed your friend go through all of these things, you know, mentally, publicly, and you helped him deal with it privately, until you went public with the public apology on your Instagram page. What was that, man? What'd you say?
Well, the apology was, I see Double XL, they quoted it, and they was like, GLC apologizes to Kanye.
You didn't really apologize to Kanye, though.
Man, see, you wise, and you can read. All you gotta do is know how to read, and you'll know who I apologize to. I apologize to the ancestor, the late, great, powerful ancestor, Dr. Donda West. The reason that I apologize to her is because we had a few conversations, but one I remember extensively is when she said, man, take care of my baby. She looked me in the eyes. She was much shorter than me, so she did it like this. Take care of my baby. And I looked down like, yes, ma'am. She was like, take care of my baby. Like, don't let nothing happen to him. Like, you've been holding him down. Like,
and when is this conversation? Is this after the success already?
Oh, man, this was at the beginning of the success because I had done a few things behind the scenes to make sure her baby was straight. And she, like, applauded me for it and was like, man, I just need you with them because when you with them, they can't get them. And I agreed to it. I told her, I was like, no problem, I'll be there. But as I said, as time went on, you know, in life, you understand that growth is of the essence and growth is the most important thing that anybody can do. We gotta grow and develop on a constant basis. And in life, people tend to grow together or they grow apart, but you can't stop growing, you know? Yeah. So fortunate enough, I never lost sight of the teachings of my mentor, the great Baba Kwesi Ronald Harris. He would always be in my ear, even when I was on the road acting a fool, even when I was on American Gangster for Larry Hoover, or all the other stuff that I did in my life. My brother would always be in my ear, and he would be standing on my shoulder in a white suit, like, you gonna do it this way, you're gonna be good, you're gonna be good, and I embraced it.
Right, and you know, you're going back to the ancestors, and you apologize to his ancestor, and we started the interview talking about the significance of libations, why you bought libations, but we never finished explaining the process. Please tell us about the significance of libations from where we left off, about pouring for the ancestors, calling them the Yah Santawaz and all of our great ancestors, and what the next part of that process is supposed to be.
Okay, so we started off calling on all the names of the Absolute that people may know him by, or her by, which I wouldn't mind saying a woman, because life comes through a woman. Then from there we went to our distant ancestors like Nzinga, the warrior queen, or Mansa Musa, the richest man to ever walk the planet Earth. Then from there we go into the more current group of ancestors. We stopped at El Hajj Malik Shabazz, or Omar Wale, the child who has returned. We want to give homage to the guys like Martin Luther King. You got people that say, well, Dr. King, he was this and he was that. How you gonna speak down on a man that gave his life for something that he believed in? How you gonna do that and you still amongst the living? You know what I'm saying? So we give thanks to Dr. King. We give thanks to Amanita Roth, which is Harriet Tubman, the lady who could have just followed that North Star, been in Canada and been free and said, I'm free. But she went back and she led people to the light. And if you were one of the people that she was leading to the light and you decided that you was gonna quit or you was gonna go back, she killed you because you wasn't finna ruin this for all the people that were seeking freedom. She didn't play. She said, I freed, and I paraphrase, I freed many, but I could have freed many more if they only knew they were slaves. We give libation to her. Now we give libation, and after that we say and we pour libation. Now we call upon our family members, those that we love, our recent loved ones that have passed. And that's when I give homage to my mother, Janie Mae Harris, who came from the mountains of Warrior Mines, West Virginia, or my brother, Willie Lee Harris Sr., my father, who came from the plantation down in Mississippi, Columbus, Mississippi, who came up during the Second Great Migration, or my uncle, James West, who just passed, who came up here from Selma, Alabama on a train. And I asked him, I said, man, how long was that ride? He said, forever. You know, he said forever. I say, man, so what was the greatest part about getting to Chicago? He said, getting here. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he was 8 years old in 1950 when he came here.
8 years old.
8 years old. So we call upon all those ancestors like the Marcus Mosiah Garveys, like the W.E.B. Du Bois or Dubois, or we call on Booker T. Washington. We call on all these great people. Because of them, we are here today. Because without them, there will be no us. And even with you coming from Ghana, we call on the great Kwame Nkrumah, the man who organized the first United States of Africa, the man that was finna bring the first one currency all throughout the whole continent. This was in the 60s.
Or the American CIA killed him.
Yeah, the American CIA killed him because they had him building a dam, and aluminum is extremely plentiful on the continent of Africa, but they had him getting his aluminum from the Americas, shipped over there, putting this man in debt like crazy. And it took 4 years to build a dam in Accra that was only supposed to take a year. And then when he died, the country was in debt, and they made him the fall guy. The CIA, man, the same thing what they did to Gaddafi. It's ugly out here, but we call on these ancestors because without them, there will be no us. So we call on them and we say and we pour libation. Then after that, we call on all the unborn children, those that are not here. Because in essence, if you really in tune with your spirituality, you know that these ain't nothing but the ancestors waiting to return. We call on them and we say and we pour libation. Yeah, and that's the gist of it.
Have you ever in your spirit felt connected to any ancestor more than any others, and you felt like you carried a torch? And if so, who is that?
Definitely so, because of the teachings of my brother. I am a Kwabena. A Kwabena in the Akan or the Asante culture in Ghana is Tuesday born. And the traits that we have is leadership, creativity, healing, nurturing, and guidance. And my brother told me that the ancestors that were born on Tuesdays, the Kwabenas, those were my spiritual guides. And two of those guys that were Tuesday borns are Malcolm X and Dr. King.
Wow.
They were Kwabenas. Wow. And people thought that they had differences, you know. They did early on, but it was just due to ignorance.
And it was intellectual differences.
Yeah, yeah. And the thing with Dr. King, a lot of people say, oh man, Dr. King was just too off into Christianity and this and that. But if you read the King papers, Dr. King said he never bought into the character that the Bible created. He knew that Africa had a deity that preceded this. He knew that the story of Jesus was no different from the story of Hadu, which the Greeks later called Horus, and then the Romans called him Jesus. Yes. We already knew Hadu. We had a system of belief and a spirituality that exceeded any doctrines that were presented us by the oppressor. We already knew God. We didn't pray to a moon god. We prayed to the sun because we were people of the sun. And my brother, he instilled this in me. So as I said early on, I still don't alienate anybody for what their beliefs is, because you simply have to meet people where they are. And people believe what they believe simply because they've been conditioned to believe so. And if they've been taught something for 20, 30 years of their whole life, and then you come in and you be like, hey man, that ain't true. Here go the real deal. Here's the Medu Nectar, the word of God. Here's the book of coming forth by night. Here's the Hosea. They looking at you like you crazy. But this all preceded the books that they lived their lives based off of.
One of your biggest skills I see is meeting people where they are. We talked early on in the first segment about you making history in Chicago 2 times. The first, most recent one that we began with was the Welcome to Inglewood landmark sign. But the second one, which is, I guess, the actualization of the symbol that came later, I would call it, was your work in saving Dyer High School. Now, for those who don't know, Dyer High School on the south side of Chicago is in danger of closing. A lot of activists. I think the organization COCO was one.
COCO, G2.
G2 Brown. G2 Brown was doing a hunger strike, refusing to eat until this school, they found a way to keep it open. Talk to us about what part you played in that process, because you stayed away from the cameras. Like, you tried as hard as you could to not have someone ask you this very question, and I want to make sure that we exalt the work that you're doing with Dyer High School.
Well, I want to say much respect to the elders, G2 and COCO, and the company that they kept and the movement that they had going on. And I must say that prior to my efforts, their efforts preceded my efforts. So without them, as I said, I'm only here because I stand on the shoulders of the ancestors and the elders that came before us. Yeah. They laid down a foundation. They was like, yo, this school ain't gonna close. So eventually the CPS, they decided like, okay, the school not gonna close, cool, y'all can get that. But what we gonna do with it? Right. So they wanted to turn it into a green technology school.
I remember that. And that wasn't good enough for you guys.
That wasn't good enough only because I know a few millionaires. And all the millionaires that I know, the majority of them, they made millions in the arts. Now, us as African-American people, we've been sold this, not just African-American people in general.
Yeah, it's an American thing.
Yeah, we've been sold this thing going like, yo, you go to college, you get your degree, then you work for somebody else and make them rich. That's the American dream. No, that's not the American dream. Why must that be our dream when this same area that we're in right now was once called the Black Belt, and it was popping. Black businesses, black business owners, prior to desegregation. All desegregation did for the black people, the most strongest effect that it had, more so than, now we can live with other races, it took the money out of our communities. Because now, if I'm a black man and I go to the jewelry store and I got $100 on me, and there's a white man with $100, he might spend $20 on a pair of earrings for his girl at this time. You know, that's probably like $200 back then. So he spend the 20. Me, I gotta show the white man that own this store, hey, I'm not like the rest of these other black guys. I'm a man. I come here and spend my whole $100. And now we in debt because I done spent the money for the groceries, the money for the lights, the money for the gas in the car, and everything I need just to show you that I'm a man. So I'm gonna run and spend all my money with you. When I go to the African-American vendors, I'm in there asking for a discount. Come on, man. So my thing is, this is a hub. Like, man, this is the land of Walter A. Diet, the dude that was a music teacher that helped nurture the jazz sound that came out of Chicago. This is the land of Aretha Franklin. She lived here. This is the land of Nat King Cole. He lived here. There's so many great artists from the past that came through Chicago that lived here at some point in their lives, and it helped them become as great as they were, and they did it through the arts. So why not have an institution on the south side of Chicago where these kids can come in and get the same education, or even, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say, a better education than what they can get at Whitney Young.
And it's the first open enrollment art school on the south side of Chicago.
First ever one in the history of Chicago, open enrollment art school that has kids from the community. It has an amazing principal by the name of Beulah McLeod. She's phenomenal. The school has a 99% freshman on track rate, a 93% attendance rate, and prior to us even having a building, we just had an idea of what this school would become. I reached out to a few of the people that I've worked with along the way, a few Oscar winners and Grammy winners and American Music Award winners, and just prominent artists that came from Chicago or just from the Midwest, or just of melanated people. And I got them to vouch for this school. And with that being said, we took enrollment from other schools that was in the area.
Did they vouch with money or with their word?
They vouched with their word. They vouched with their word because the city.
Do you think our stars, I know we only have a few minutes, but do you think we do enough to put our dollars behind our words in the city of Chicago?
I think we need to do more, definitely. But the reason why they didn't have to put their dollars was CPS put their dollars up. They put like $15 million into that school.
Well, other people's money is always better than your own, so that's why
millionaires think.
That's how millionaires do.
They don't ever use their money
invest
to
someone
do
else's
nothing.
money.
But we do have to get back to the point where we're spending more than that 1% of $1 trillion a year with our own. We got to do that.
Promise me you'll come back, man. We got to talk more, man.
Nah, I definitely come back.
We didn't even scratch the surface. I want to show them your shirt, man. Shout out your website and where can I get one? This is where I'm from right here. We got Ghana right there.
Oh yeah, we got
University of Ghana is where I got this journal here.
Yeah, we in here, man.
We in here. So glctheism.com.
Yeah, it's glctheism.com. The name of the shirt is the company is called Materialism. And I got a new album coming out too. I know we ain't talk about that.
We didn't even get into the album, man. Oh,
I got so much going on.
You got so much, man. You got Ism Cakes. You got the Mankind insulin inhalers. You got the clothing line Materialism. All of that is available at glctheism.com, man. Brother, thank you so much for joining the ImageMakers series. Next time, it's all about the album. My name is Dometi Pongo. Our guest was artist, two-time Grammy Award winner, GLC. And we didn't even talk about the web series he has coming out. Oh my goodness.
We got a lot to talk about.
We got lots coming back next time, man. You're watching the ImageMakers series powered by MG Media and TBT News. A big thank you to my crew, Ben Mays, our production guy, our camera guy, Lauricia, our production team, Gail Murchison, and of course our executive producer, Carl West.